Hi, Shamini. Sorry to be.
Hey, Vladimir, sorry to be a little late.
You are the only one. I was the latest one, and then you came in.
Great. Yeah, well, it's Memorial Day, so I don't know if
I know.
anyone's sure.
Is it really very popular here, Memorial Day? To,
Yeah, people usually try to take the day off. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to be able to join, and I was actually
uh,
trying to get into a puja, but for some reason, I wasn't able to. Oh, but I'm looking and it says 7 participants now.
yes, yes, I can see. Yes, 8 even. Yes, great.
Yes. I think everyone is just joining in.
Right. It is because of me being late. Yes.
Oh.
Great. Welcome in Memorial Day. You are here. So nice. I was a little late. A few minutes. I was preparing the building blocks, which we will be going through today. Great. Let us start with mantra. Om Sarvesham svastirбхавату, Sarvesham shantirbhavatu, Sarvesham purnam bhavatu, Sarvesham mangalam bhavatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Right. Wow. 2 more people. Wait a minute. Benedetta and Jessel. I'm very glad that you're coming back after that last time difficult presentation. I thought you would be discouraged from all of it. Did you have an opportunity to go through it or to think over it, what we were discussing last time, or it's a bit kind of you're waiting for a new food to be fed, right? New food. Okay. Melissa says new food. That was a very mental food, mental structure. When we come to Indra, we will deal with those mental forms, grammatical forms, and we will have to do it. We will have to unite and to unify these semantic, syntactic, and pragmatic meanings into one. We will have to see how it is being generated through language. Last time I was, Benedetta was saying very, very reasonable things, and I was thinking about it this week that yes, there will be always a change. There will be in the future, there will be different considerations. In the past, there were different forms. And it can't be something which is statically and finally presented as something which cannot be changed. You remember when we discussed these levels of meaning here somewhere. Oh, no, it was in a different, it wasn't in a PowerPoint presentation. And I agree with Benedetta. Yes, there will be always a change. There will be always a shift, a modification. But there are certain things which must be there, such as subject and object. When subject wants to become something, some predicate, yes, to be known by itself to itself, by some quality, or interact with some other being and accommodate that being into one's consciousness. These are two major movements, yeah? And how he does it, and what for, and because of
Class.
what.
Vladimir's class.
Oh, right. That is, you're not muted, Shamini. Okay, I muted you, just in case you want to talk.
Sorry about that.
No problem. And so if you look at this, you will see that actually we have limited mental capacity. And that capacity is determined, that limitation is determined by that our way of knowing ourselves and the world is determined by this knowledge by identity. Whatever we want to know, we have to become. We have to appropriate to make our own self. And that is the case which leads us to this subject-object, subject-predicate, or nominative-accusative case. What is this accusative case thing? The original, yeah. I will give you, yes, I didn't. I was putting it today morning, and so I will give the reference to this, what is here in front of us. This is from the archives of Sri Aurobindo's writings. Now, where was I? Right, I lost my track. There's something I wanted to say. Yes, and if we think of this determination of the meaning through what was that I was talking about? It has to be finished thought.
Subject predicate.
Yes, subject predicate. Yes. Yeah. If you look at the Karakas, syntactic semantics, how syntactic semantics is being built, this is the most interesting part, how mind interferes and builds up the worlds, because the world is built on the ground of those relations between oneself and not oneself, self and not self, so to say, which we appropriate and make our own. And on the ground of the highest, everything is oneself, but in this divided world of manifestation, everything is separated in different forms and interactions. So how that was achieved, through what means, how this mind generated those movements, mental categories, which could capture the word or capture the substance of consciousness, let us say, and put it into action. Yeah. So it is through these Karakas, 7 Karakas. So it determined the major name, the name of the subject, nominative case, which is, as Panini says, Svatantra Karta, that is, independent is the doer, always independent. It is like number 1. It's quite interesting because in numbers, if you look at them, you will see that let me look at these again. Here it is. Who or what is something which is not determined by anything, but by itself, by himself. So if I start the subject to speak of, suppose I start about the tree, so I choose the tree at will to speak of. It is not something which somebody determined for me. It's independent. So the number 1 is independent. It's the only independent number in a way. When I asked one professor of mathematics to help me to define what is 1, because I understand what is 2, 3, because 2 depends on 1 plus 1 is 2, 3, 2 plus 1 is 3, or 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. We already know all the numbers, but we do not know what is 1, how to determine the 1. And he told me that you are asking the most difficult question in mathematics. What is 1? Because this is the only number which we choose at will. If I choose that this is the 1 on the scale, then 2 is this, and 3 is that. But if I choose this as the 1, then 2 is that. And if I choose the whole scale is 1, where is the 2? So it's a big mathematical problem, and also I think it's a mental problem of a mental category. So the nominative case, the karta, the one who is actually chosen at will, svatantra karta, independent karta. nominative case. This independence of one. And of course, I spent a lot of time thinking about this one, number one. And finally, I arrived at a very weird definition of one, if you want to know, just on the side mentioning. I was operating with numbers and I arrived that one is 0,9 into eternity. It is 9 which is constantly running after comma. Yeah? You have 0.9 into eternity. So if you take the last 9, which is not possible because it is always there running, so to say, so then that 1 will run through the whole 9 before point and will become 1. So that 1 is dynamically the biggest number we can ever imagine, because with 1 you can independently determine anything, everything as 1. Yeah? It is the action of will. And now you see, I'm just unfolding this while I'm saying that these 7 are everything we have. I'm dealing only with the first vibhakti, with the first case. So if we start deepening our understanding of these cases, kind of meditating upon them, looking at them, what they really mean, what is the real meaning behind these mental categories, we will find that they actually are sufficient for our mind to understand ourselves and the world and operate within it. Weird, but true. And when I tried to find any other category, I couldn't. So there is someone who is, and there's someone who wants to become something, and that is karma. That is what he wants to be. Yeah, whatever he wants to identify with, to expand himself with, to appropriate. And then how he does it in different manners, slowly, happily, and so on and so forth, with the help of some instruments and so on and so forth. That is what unites 1 plus 2 equals 3. Notice even numbers fit very well. Yeah, because these are the hierarchy of meanings. They are put in a proper hierarchy. And then finally you have what for it is all this, what for he needs to become something else in some particular manner, because there is some aim which is going beyond that particular identification with the object. It is wanted for something to happen. Yeah? And then there is another, because of what it is really taking place. There is a cause to it for him to want to be something else beyond that particular identification. And that is ablative case, 5th vibhakti. Where from? What is the reason, the source, the cause, the origin or the background of this movement? And finally, the relations within all these objects and subjects, how they relate, and where they are located in time and space, the location. And that's it. I even imagined some device which you can take with one hand. You can see the subject becoming this conscious understanding of itself in the particular way, for something, because of something, in relation to something, and located in time and space. That's it. That's the whole structure, the whole pyramid. All the relations possible in our mind. And no more. If I cannot even think about any other relation, because because I will think by these very categories. I will modify any other relation by these very categories which I mentioned already. I cannot think by other categories. Okay, that's some kind of extended explanation to Benedetta's comment. Benedetta is not showing herself. How are you, Benedetta, today? Great. All right. I would love to discuss these things, but I'm kind of discussing with myself, as it were. Identity. Knowledge by identity is the only knowledge we have. There is no other knowledge. As Sri Aurobindo says, if I know something, it is because if I know myself, it is because I appropriated, I became the body. That's how I know myself, the body.
Hi, Vlad. Sorry, I am driving to
All
town
right.
for a medical check, so I couldn't. Now I stopped a second
Okay, sorry.
to answer to you. Yeah, thanks a lot. I was also reflecting upon what we said during last meeting, and I figured out these are like dimensions of the mental space. No, for instance, when we have seven dimension of this of our mental space, which would combine your perspective, I see, and also my remark, in the sense that yeah, there could be five, there could be non-Euclidean spaces of mind. For instance, the Greek, a Greek more ancient than the classical Greek that we study had a case for two. Now you were talking about one. They have these only in very, very old literature, they have this case for a subject which are two people or two cows
Okay.
or two flowers,
Oh, you
but
mean dual? Yes, they have a dual category.
dual. Yeah,
Dual.
yes.
Yeah,
Anyway, thanks a lot.
yeah. And dual is also a category which we lost, and we identify it with plural now in every language, modern language, because of economy of speech. We don't want to have many forms. But for the ancients,
Yeah,
they didn't
like the Eskimos, it seems they have 17 names for snow.
Right.
Of course, because for them some nuances are important, while for us snow is just snow. We hardly ever see it, and it
Right.
doesn't change that much of our life. So maybe at a point, the fact of being two was even different from being several, no, from simple plural, and then there was a simplification, as you said.
Yeah. Me and the other. And me and the other is already a plural in a way, so to say, but not in the ancient thinking, because dual is important. Yeah. It's a split of the one. It's like the one wants to, it's like subject and object. Yeah. All these first major categories, which have to be there. They have to come together in a way. And there is,
Thanks, Dan.
yeah. And there are also these dualities, natural dualities, like we have two hands, two eyes, yeah, heaven and earth, day and night, parents. So all these dualities, like trousers is a dual actually. Yeah, scissors, it's a dual. Glasses is a dual. Glasses, it's not plural. It's one pair of glasses, we say pair now, just to avoid that misunderstanding. Anyhow, what I wanted to say, this is an important vision. And once you see it more, why this hierarchy? Hierarchy is also meaningful. Not just only that these categories are there, but also hierarchy, why the karta is first, without which nothing can be achieved, because if there is no one to achieve something, so what is to be achieved? Yeah. So first there has to be someone, then has to be someone wants to be something. That is cheat tapas. That is exactly what it is. So you can see karta is the one asat, karma is cheat tapas, consciousness force, which wants to present oneself to oneself in a particular form, know oneself in a particular way. And then how it is knowing itself in a particular way is that bliss. Yeah, awesome. So here we have Sat Chit Ananda, and then what for doesn't it wants itself as a bliss? It wants itself or knows itself as a bliss for something, for, and that is some jnana, or what we call vijnana, the supermind, which manifests the world. So it knows itself in a blissful state for the manifestation of the world. Vijnana, some pradhanam, to give oneself totally means in Sanskrit to sacrifice oneself, to give oneself totally forward, to sacrifice oneself, to manifest oneself. That's what supermind does. It manifests the transcendental Satchitananda into this manifestation. And then we have manas, prana, and annam, which are corresponding exactly to these three next. Apadanam, the reason, which mind is always looking for the reason, for the cause and effect. That's how mind operates, yeah? Mental structure. Sambandha is the relations. All things are related in some way, connected, and that is prana, the vital energy, which holds this constant interchange, exchange between energies. And adhikaranam, body, location in the body, in the material frame. Annam, matter. Just look at this, that this philosophy of Satchitananda, Vijnana, Manas, Prana, and Annam, this fundamental philosophy of Hinduism, starting from the Vedas, is inbuilt in the mental categories of language. And I'm not sure what was first, language or philosophy, or both, most probably both. This is a profound discovery. This is one of the most interesting discoveries of Sanskrit grammar. So how the meaning was captured. Okay, this was not the topic of today. Today's topic is building blocks. So here I take quotations from Sri Aurobindo from his archival material. Where he was very interested to discover the meaning of the roots in the systematic way. And he did a lot of work. There is a huge number of things written by him on Sanskrit roots, which is called Philological Studies of the Vedic language. I will give you that file. It's like something like 600 or 800 pages of different notes of Sri Aurobindo on different meanings of the roots. So I shall first, says Sri Aurobindo, indicate the principle on which the roots of Deva Bhasha were formed. All Shabda, Vak, as it manifests out of Akasha by the force of Matarishvan. Matarishvan is the one who is swelling, growing within the womb of the mother, as it were. The great active and creative energy, and is put in its place in the flux of formed things, apas, carries with it certain definite significances, artha. These are determined by the elements through which it has passed. Shabda appears in Akasha, ether, travels through Vayu, air, the second element, in which Sparsha is the vibration. Sparsha is the touch. Vayu is the wind. Akasha is ether. By the vibrations of sparsha, there are vibrations of touch, it creates in tejas, in the energy, light, heat, the third element, certain forms which can be seen because it requires light, energy which forms the form, and so arrives into being with these three characteristics. First, certain contextual vibrations. Secondly, a particular kind of tejas or force. Thirdly, a particular form. These determine the bhava or general sensation it creates in the mind, and from that sensation develop its various precise meanings according to the form which it is used to create. Now, it's a little heavy language, but if you follow the idea is that we have 5 elements, from the ether to air to fire to water and earth. Before the formation, the hard and separate formation is formed, there are 5 elements are participating in it. So there is a vibration in the ether which represents the being as such in its conscious vibration, and then it has to have that friction or that second dimension which will twist it or present it as a separate entity and define itself by touch. Touch is an interesting thing. When you touch something, you know the boundaries. You know your boundaries, you know where you begin, where you end, where other things starts. You determine your, it's like the skin. It's quite interesting. Our skin is a touch. Yeah, skin is the end of our being in the physical body. This is where I end. This is where this is the end. Where, and that's how with this I can touch anything else. It's quite interesting. So I determine myself. First, I am there. Then I determine myself. Then the energy flames out and creates the vision of myself, the energy, the tejas, the form of myself which I can perceive now, see, and then that becomes the interactive through the water with other. So water is that connectivity with all, or relation with all other beings, so to say. And finally we have the form, rigid form, separately standing as the earth. So here they are, the building blocks. Sri Aurobindo says that building blocks, and it's his quotation, the elementary parts of sense are 6 in number: being, motion, contact, sound, form, and action. He traced this back to the original meanings. If you take any root in Sanskrit, you will find that it has several applications. For example, root rich. Yes, yes, Bhavani. You want to ask something or to say something?
Well, going back to the last slide, it's probably here too. But yes. I think about that touch as literally the vocal cords touching. And then for that sound to emerge out of the vocal cords, there's some force or tejas that moves the vibration from there through the mouth. And then the shaping of the mouth creates the form of that sound. So that's all.
Right. Right. Okay. Great. Great. You will see that we are dealing with archetypes. Again, mind. We cannot get out of that structure of 7 cases. So we will be within them, trying to formulate anything and to understand anything, because that is how the world is built. Yeah, that's great.
Well, yeah. I literally, I mean, when I introduce sound as a practice, I literally do it that, I mean, I start with that, Wonderful. With the literal, like finding the contact and then widening and moving it forward and then creating the shape with the mouth and the form. So it seems practical, but.
Yes, and then you can also load it with consciousness. Each sound can be loaded with a particular message or consciousness or intention. So you can, with different intention, project the sound ah. Yeah? We can even play this game. Yeah, what do I communicate by And it will be there in articulation. It will be in subtleties which you will perceive. It's very amazing, how we perceive the messages through the sound. We can load it with one more meaning. It is not within the sound. We want to go deep within the significance of sound, not into the articulation of it and communication. We want first to recover the basics. Yeah? Why these 6 blocks here is quite interesting, because if you study Sanskrit language and see how the roots are built, the meanings, you will find amazing thing. First of all, nearly all of the roots have the sense and significance of motion. You can use them as the moving significance. I think like 3/4 of all the roots in Sanskrit would have the significance of motion. Moving, going, changing. Because the root itself is a particular shift. Yeah? Even the root sta, to stay, which is not moving, just opposite to moving, reflects something which makes it different from the rest. And that particularity, that action, or Shubindo makes it as an action later, because it can be more complex than just movement. Movement is a very particular flow, but action has more varieties of that movement. So if every root may have this significance of motion and being, definitely being. Because if being is not there, the root is nothing to, has no value, has nothing to express. It's that being is to be expressed by the verb. It's that nominative case is using the verb to identify itself, its own being with another being or with another form of itself. Now you can see the contact. Contact is the same. Contact is something when the motion comes into contact with another being. It's kind of interesting. Being, motion, and then contact with another being or other self. And there are sound and form, quite important, 2 of them. Sounding, it seems, it's something which is expressing an intention or need, or something which the being wants but cannot have. It's not the motion yet. It's the motion of the being, vibration of the being, expressing its wish, will, need. Yeah? And form. Form is definitely there because it has to be formed into some visual formation, because it's all about manifestation and the action. Now look at these fundamentals, which all of them can be represented by each root. That's what I want to say. That's why in Sanskrit root arch, rich, archati, in the dictionary you find 2 meanings, to speak and to flame. How come? Speak and flame. And that is what it is, because you have to flame, flame to reveal some energy, to reveal the form, to aspire, and also vibrate. And speak is also speak to create the same vibration in the sound, the need. So you see how close they are. We just find 2 meanings, and there are many more roots, and we will look into these significances of roots and how they can be applied. We will discover that our dictionary gives only very narrow spectrum of significances, which we human beings of later time could derive from the text. We don't see the whole range of each of these formations expressing in the text. So now he looks at these 5 accordingly. So being vibrant with consciousness, this is akasha. Yeah? or that vowel sounds are exactly these sounds, being vibrant with consciousness. I, U, we will come to them at the end. Becomes a vibration as a sound of conscious force. Vibration manifested through hearing the sound, Shabda, Akasha. Shabda is the word. Akasha is the ether. Now that IU whatever can be formed, can start and end, can become a body by itself, can come into contact with other consonant or vowel, mix, touch, push, and that is contact vibration manifested through touch as an energy of conscious being, that conscious being first, and then its energy, its action creates the touch, and that is Vayu. Now, contextual vibration manifested through forming itself into energy, force, heat, flame, light, seeing form, tejas, Agni. So this contact with being with oneself, and difference, which kind of forming the boundaries of oneself and recognizing one's own limited space, which the sparsha created, the touch, is now forming within itself into energy. It is another dimension added to it. If the touch was second dimension, then this is the third dimension, which creates the vision. The energy which is finally can be recognized as right. And finally, that formation can, that energy can communicate. Flux of formed energy in things, flux, manifested in their contacts and relations, is apas, waters. And then finally that contact and flux can withdraw into separateness of things, rigidity, hardness, multitude, parithivi, as a separate word, as a separate form, as a separate being in material form. So here there are the building blocks. First, very important to understand that the meanings of the roots are not about only seeing, only hearing. They are about everything, about being, moving, contacting, sounding, forming, and acting. These are the major blocks. The rest will be varieties, some form of varieties of these fundamentals. Now, Sri Aurobindo continues in the same archival materials. I actually already put all this material there for you, philological studies of the Veda. You can find all these from there. You can just type it if you want exact quotation, and it will give you the page. I shall consider first the vowel roots. The vowel roots. They are 4 in number. A, I, U, Ri. And all 4 of them indicate primarily the idea of being. That first being, existence, in some elementary aspect or modification suggested by the innate quality or guna of the sound denoting it. It is that what we were dealing with, and we will come to it more in detail, because that is the topic of our studies. A, in its short form, indicates being in its simplicity, without any further idea of modification in quality, mere or initial being, creative of space. Since being is there, it must have space, in manifestation. So it creates its own, so to say, space. Vocal cords are sounding, no modification in the mouth. No tongue is moving, no lips, nothing, only vocal cords. Now, E sound, E is already a modification, an intense state of existence, being narrowed, forceful and insistent, tending to a goal, seeking to occupy space. Do you recognize it as true? So the R has open mouth and nothing else. E, the tongue is pressing already to the top, to the palate, to the hard palate. It's the most intense state of our tongue, of our apparatus, of our effort within the apparatus, which creates this E sound. E nearly, it wants to touch the palate, it cannot touch it. So there is a gap there. The middle of the tongue is pressing to the palate, hard palate, top of palate. And that is the being narrowed. R, which is R, being narrowed. Yeah, it is becoming forceful and insistent in a way, tending to a goal. It's like an arrow flying to hit the target. Yeah? That E, like piercing, like needle. Yeah? That piercing needle, yeah? E, is there seeking, yeah, or to occupy space. It is like that E is a Varna, a color of particular psychological state, which is created by this modulation in the mouth and recognized as E sound. U, a wide, extended, but not diffused state of existence. It's like water. If A is like a being, E is like a fire, and U is like a water. Water.
Vladimir,
Mm.
it just trying to say that, and what I felt, no, that when we say A, it's more of like being more spacious and then being more open. And when I was trying to say E, it was like really putting myself out there and then like just making it very clear, sort of that energy. And then U was like in a very balanced state, not that side, not this side, like just here in the center, something of that sort.
Right, nice. So U is being medial and firmly occupant of space. It's like pervasive, holding the space from within. And also medial, duality. Duality comes from U, maybe because there are two lips in our mind. Two equal lips which are creating this play, this kiss. Yeah, kiss, lips are kissing each other. So, and then when they create that form of relation, so that tension, that duality, yeah? And dual, thou, you, second person, always in with u. In Sanskrit the same, tvam, yuvam, yuyam. Yeah? You will have u everywhere. You will have in all dualities u. Marut marutau marutah, narach narau narah. Duals will have au. U must be there for some reason to create duality. And also water, so that interaction, that connectivity, that relation between two beings. So we have one is more like a being, other is more like energy, which creates the tension, to express oneself, and U is interaction, like waters, exactly as Sri Aurobindo describes with these 5 elements. And then there is a rigidity with Ri. Ri is a vibrant state of existence, pulsing in a space, being active about a point within a limit. R, yeah, it's still a vowel, but it is already forming a very interesting formation of cutting, shaping the form, separating it into the separate being. Do you agree with this psychology or not? Do you find it meaningful? If not, I have to clarify. If yes, then that's great. I want to hear your ideas. And you can see these vowels in all their roots, in all the words, and they're playing the same Varna, the same color. You will start recognizing the general significance in the roots, not contextual, but the meaning which is going beyond the context because of its Varnic properties. Yes, Bhavani, you want to say something? Your hand is up.
That was from before.
Oh, it was the problem. Yeah, some observations, some ideas now? Yeah, no, nothing. For me, it is food for life. I find this so meaningful, so profound. Because if you start examining these vowels in their roots, you will see how they play out. They create the whole world. And that's why it is considered that our sound in the Tantra is the only sound, which is being modified by the tongue, the lips, the teeth, the nasal cave. It is being modified by breath. So ah modified by the tongue will become I. So if it moves from ah to e to e. These are the modifications of ah. Ah modified by lips, ah is becoming o and u and ow. All these modification by lips. Yeah? And then you can modify it by the breath, aha, or you can modify it by the tongue touching, ka, ka, ga, ga, nga, cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, ta, 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 na, ta, ta, da, da, na, pa, 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 yara, lava, sha, sha, saha. These are modifications by the tongue, by the lips, and so on. The only one sound is being modified in many different ways. That's why Sri Krishna in the Gita says, among all the sounds, I am Akara, short A, from which all other sounds are being derived. We can see these meanings. I can see here these major. And there is one more, re. If re is still rolling, still connecting, still resisting, cutting, relating, everywhere, then li is, I would add one more sound, li, L, which is the modified re, which is already not vibrating, interacting, resisting, yeah? Relating, but it is already laying, gliding, not crashing, but clashing, leaping, longing, loving, leaking. So you will see all that it is already gluing to. Yeah? It is becoming kind of laying onto it. So it is becoming totally a part of that form. Not resisting, not yet still defining itself and relating to others, but already totally defined and related and fixed. So here you have the whole, all those five which we were looking into in a beautiful way of expression through vowels. There is a question or something.
What about ma? Does that fit in any way?
Ma is a yes, it's a nasal labial sounds, and we will look into the major alphabet now. Yes, Shivbindu says about long vowels, it's also important maybe to know that because there are short and long vowels, the lengthened form of these vowels add only a greater intensity to the meaning of the original forms. But the lengthening of the R modifies more profoundly. It brings in the sense a space already created and occupied by the diffusion of the simple state of being, a diffused or pervasive state of existence. And you know that in the Sanskrit alphabet, A is samvritam, the most closed sound, whereas A is the most open sound. And it's totally true. These significances are, I suggest, eternally native to these sounds and consciously or unconsciously determined the use of them in language by Aryan speakers. To follow these developments and modifications, it is necessary to take these roots one by one in themselves and in their derivatives. So we have to see how they are applied. We have to see what they mean in the system of etymons. And here, if we look at this alphabet, I'm typing it in the not in Devanagari, because some of you may not know, but I see that all of you know Devanagari. Unfortunately, I was stupid not to. I should bring it in Devanagari next time. But if you look at this, it is the first etymological system, the apparatus which we use to define all the sounds. Look, the vowels are I, Ri, Li, U. These are 5 levels of articulations. A back tongue, or the vocal cords, E palatals, Ri cerebrals. With Ri we have to talk separately, it's a big topic. Li is dental. It's like slippering from cerebrals, from the heels over the teeth to the teeth, touching already with the tip of the tongue. Whereas Ri is is still having a r, but L is already totally glued to the teeth. And then U, two lips, the surface of our face. U is the last one, which is already full. We are full of ourselves, and the rest is there beyond. And on each of these levels, of 5 levels, there are 5 simple vowels, and there are consonants, the modifications by the tongue, by the lips, nasal cave. It's an amazing system. So a, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, ha, ha. If we analyze all these sounds, we have to do this analysis before we go to the roots. So we can see that there is touched, touched, aspirated, voiced, voiced, aspirated, nasal, when the sound goes through the nasal cave, semi-vowel. That semi-vowel, that means from A I have to create a vowel, which is quite a task. From the vowel I have to create the consonant, which is quite a big task because vowels are infinite, I, without stop. Consonants have stops. They are kind of touched. So they are sparshas. They are already determined in their own separate being. So that determination would be done. In our case, there is no tongue. It can be done only by breath. Aha. That aha breath can separate a into separate formation of the consonant. Now E, if I want to separate, it becomes ya. So to say, I press tongue to the palate so much that it becomes like a consonant. Y. It becomes y sound. Then ri becomes ra, li becomes la, and w, u becomes wa or va. In Sanskrit, wa and va are not distinguished as different in meaning. Only like allophones, like different ways of pronouncing the same sound. And they are defined like labials, wa, and dental labials, va. 2 different modifications of the same meaningful sound. In English, there are two different, W and U. Yes, wa and va, yeah, and va, V and W. And then fricatives. Fricatives are interesting because of one particular reason. They don't have vocal cords. There is as if not, there is no ah, as it were. There is only breath. Breath pushing and tongue creating the friction. Not totally touching, but creating, come so close to touch that creates a friction. Hissing. Yeah. Five hissings. We are adding sound to hear it better. Incredible. Yeah. If you think of what we have for our game. Now, if you look at these meanings which have been prescribed to each of these vowels, we will find that they are played out in the alphabet and in the first simple roots. So if I take the full varga of k and k k g g ng h h, I find these the most general significances of the meaning presented by these simple roots, which we will look into the root system. And a itself would have the most general significance in Sanskrit language. That's why there are so many as, because they do not modify ka. Ka with a would not modify its meaning, or ka or ga. So a is not a modifier. It's kind of supporter, carrier, creates the being with that touch. You know? It is not interfering and modifying strongly the sense or the meaning of the root. Whereas E would be defining it, changing it dramatically. So if I take chi, root chi, chi, ji, ji, ni, yi, shi, some of these roots are available. By the way, also simple roots are available. E is the root to go, to move. Ri is to rise, to move, to overcome. Li, we do not have root. U, we have U, to pervade, to occupy. Yeah, avatu, avatumam, avati, it means to occupy and to fill from within and to protect in that way. So we could see there is no root a available, but there are many roots extended with a at the beginning, the whole list of roots, and all of them will have meaning of just being on movement. And that's it. There will be no particular meaning. And this is amazing if you think of. And if you take e root as a motion, as a no, chi would have a meaning of noticing or piling up or focusing on one point, one pointedness. Yeah? And that is chi. Ji would have the meaning of breaking through, occupying, conquering. Yeah? Shi, sharpening. It's again one pointedness. So these are simple roots. Yeah? Yi, ya would have meaning of moving, going. Now pu would have a meaning of purifying, like waters. Huh? Bhu would have the meaning of becoming, occupying. Mu is the meaning of binding. And we will start connecting these, like if I take ma root is to measure, mi is to diminish, mu is to bind, and mri is to die or to purify, to separate form from form. You will see these general significances coming through the simple roots. I will stop here for now. So next time we will start analyzing these vargas and the roots we have for different meanings. And then we will look into the derivation system, how the words are derived and how they are grammatically applied. All right. You have some questions, some comments, some burning observations? There's something coming from chat. Yes. Well, it is interestingly, it is the same system. It's actually not an alphabet. It's not like alphabet, like French alphabet or English alphabet, or even it is the system of all possible articulations within given apparatus. If I will ask you to pronounce, for example, guttural voiceless consonant, so means back tongue, voiceless consonant will be touched and voiceless, and you will try to do it and it will be k, ka, definitely. Can't be anything else. So this ka is just a representative of the back tongue touched. Yeah. Or if I ask you to make a dental sound, voiced, touched, and then you will try, you will put your tip of the tongue on the dentals, on the teeth, and then make voice touch, and it will be d, exactly d. Yeah. So if somebody said that would be nice to learn the pronunciation, then pronunciation is given you in description. You put it there, pronounce it, and you will have it. You cannot be mistaken.
I wish they would teach us the language like this and when we were kids in school. It would be so interesting. And yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, and it is really a beautiful thing because it's the only thing we have really to express ourselves, this apparatus, these capacities of articulating sounds and meanings. Yes, I agree totally. Yes, these are considered v and w are considered to be allophones. That means they are variations, dental of labial and labial. So there is no difference in Sanskrit. You can say svar or swar. And you can hear this. Many Indians actually have this problem with English. They do not distinguish between w and v, and it's not something.
Yes, but usually it's in nowadays languages, like more like the Bengalis will have a tendency also to say bh instead of v, for
That
instance.
you ask.
But
Okay.
it's just that I was taught the different versions, so that maybe in the south people will pronounce more as a v, and maybe in the north more as a w, when speaking about Sanskrit and not Hindi or any other language.
Understand.
And I was just wondering what would be your or is it that mostly it is when there was a u earlier, or in the I don't know. Is it
It is a
maybe I'm not clear?
semi-vowel of who, yes. So if you make semi-vowel, just let us forget India for a moment, because when we come to different states, they have different distortions. Bengalis have everywhere or some rhythm o sounds like o, orobindo, aravinda sounds orobindo, no v, so it's all changing because these are prakrits. These are the restrictions of the apparatus or choices which those people made to make their natural languages flow easier. In Orissa, for example, you will have another difficulty. People do not distinguish between sh, and s. There, everything is s only. In Bengali, only sh instead of s and sh and sh. So they will say rosho for rasa. So, and in Orissa, they will say risi for rishi. Yeah. So you have it in this way. It's a Fricatives, which we do not deal today, but we are dealing with this beautiful system which you, with your capacity of apparatus, may have some variety. Some people say back tongue, others say forward, some people say o, others say o, u, yoga in Germany, yoga, more u than o, back tongue. So there are varieties, allophones, varieties of sounds, and this v and w are also considered to be by Sanskritists, by modern Sanskrit, I mean by as varieties, as allophones, not as separate sounds.
Yeah. So, sorry, so then there is not a way that you recommend to pronounce it?
No, v, of course, v, dental labial, va, but in certain position where there is independent svarita, like suaha, you will have ua. Yeah, and there uva is difficult, not suvar, but suvar. Yeah, because uv and uv is easier to flow. And that again is a preference, allophonic preference. Both ways are pronounced. In India, there are so many varieties of Sanskrit pronunciation. Brahmins from Maharashtra and North, they are still quarreling non-stop about how to pronounce re sound. And some say re, others say ru, Krishna, Krishna. So there's ongoing disputes. Yes, definitely. But these are secondary matters for us. For us, this to see the apparatus capacity of pronouncing it. We are not yet coming to that ground. We will come to it and see how it is being embodied in the modern situation in India. And for example, many sounds in India, they are totally omitted. There is no difference between sha and sha anymore. Nobody will say Shanti, Shiva, Shakti. In Tamil Nadu, they will write even Siva, Sakti. Why? Because the sh, the soft sh, they hear it, but they can't really make it. Yeah? So, or there is only one Shanti, Shanti, only one sh. For sh and sh, two different shs, only one sh is left. In India. In Hindi, there will be no difference between sh and sh. Yeah, so hard sh and sh soft.
I think there is. Some people do speak with a.
Oh yeah, nowadays they become aware. Yes, I agree. In Brahmanic, yeah, they are very subtle in ear and they want to have it back. But I mean in Prakrits, in modern languages like Hindi, you would not distinguish.
I think people who are well learned, they really, you can hear the difference when they speak.
Yeah, right? Could be. Yes, yes, right. Because they are educated in that way. Yes, right. And that is what makes them, more aristocratic in speech or something. Or jña, for that matter. Jña is totally disappeared. You can have everything but jña because it's difficult. Jña. Yeah? So you have jñana, yajña. Nobody would say it. Gyana, jhana, jyana, whatever, but not jña.
But I heard also several. My first husband was a Brahmin, and he taught me. At that time, I studied at university 20 years back, but he was also my teacher, and he was saying that one should pronounce it nia, because it's in the series of letter that it's logical to not pronounce it jnya but nia.
Logical doesn't work for me because jña is j plus nya makes by nya.
Yeah, but because it is supposed to be in the series of letter where you should pronounce it at the top of the.
Yes, it's a palatal, yes. This is our varga. Cha-cha, ja-ja, nya. Why nya is following ja? Because they are in the same varga, in the same palatal varga, yes. So j, nya, j, nya. Yeah, it is very soft in the same position, no problem. But because j is, it requires effort and nya is already nasal sound, it's just difficult combination for some people. You would be surprised to know how for different people there are different difficulties. I never knew it, but as many people I know, there are many specific difficulties in articulation of sounds. For
So,
me,
as a point of a therapist, I look at this apparatus kind of a questionnaire or kind of a self test where one can find out their psychological parameters for for the moment. It can, the way you're saying right now. I too have like being read in Gujarati, taught in Gujarati, but there are still certain vowels and still certain this gnya, the gnya, we are taught to pronounce it as gnan. The g comes gyan.
yeah.
And I want to relate this apparatus with the psychological emotional parameters, what one, and it's quite interesting, Vladimir, here. Like, yeah, I can see something I can do with it.
But
Right.
you link it with the
Emotion.
linguistic and cultural background. You mean that the emotional you make sort
Yeah,
of
the
glint in.
meanings what Vladimir told us
Mm-hmm.
before. So I can link it somewhere like that.
Mm.
Give the person that test, or a person can have a test on their own and see where are they, see where they fall or where are they facing. It
So
can be an interesting.
do you mean, I'm sorry, because I'm also very interested by that subject. Like if, for instance, they would be more in, in, for instance, there would be more in one dosha, for instance, or something like that. You mean to say that
So
it can
if a
translate in
person
the
is,
language also?
yeah, so if a person is depressed or stressed, we can ask them to, just vocally say these and just make them realize that where are they feeling? What are they
Mm.
feeling? What is the body part they are responding? Like, oh, will be all about space. So it might be a person who is scared will not want to say, oh.
Mm.
So when you make them do that exercise, it can be a very self-revealing kind of an experience for the therapist as well as for the participant. And the thing which would have taken days and days of sessions, you can pick it up very quickly here.
Mm. Yeah, but this is a good research you can make with different words, for example, expressing different emotions, like words which do not have so much meaning, but they are more like exclamations, like why do we use those words like, I do not know, ouch, for this particular expression, or like any other, like, ah,
Uh,
for this expression.
there are these, if you hear the clients when they talk, and you will hear the change of these expressions like, ah, oh, yes,
Uh,
no. Like, it changes with their moods.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
And when you hear them for an hour or two, you can
uh-huh.
really pick it that where are they,
They are
on which level.
using more these vowels, these varnas than other varnas
Yes,
because they are
yes.
already predetermined psychologically to do it. Yes,
It
great.
might be.
Interesting research. Yeah, could be
Hey, let's see. I can work that out and see.
made. Right. Great. Okay, lovely. I will close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santo Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet Om Shanti 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 Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Hari Om. See you. Namaste.